So the two proceeded on their way. Now the pronoun that is used is a dual. Now how many people were there? There were three. But the pronoun now they said they proceeded is a dual pronoun. So Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam. Now what happens to Yusha bin Nun? Some have said that he stayed there or he returned. Others have said that he could have been accompanying them, but because he is the servant, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to address just the two of them. Whatever it happened, okay. Just bringing that up in case it crosses your mind. So the two proceeded on their way, and as they're traveling, they see a ship coming. Okay. As the ship is coming, they want to get on the ship. So the people of the ship, they recognize Khidr alayhi salam. They said, come on board. So Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam get on this ship. And they said, we are not going to charge you anything because you're special, you're Khidr. So as they get on the ship, what happens? First thing, we told you about that bird that comes and drinks the water, and Khidr alayhi salam says that, your knowledge, my knowledge, and knowledge of is less than what this bird has taken in its beak compared to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then as they're traveling, Musa alayhi salam must have lost sight of Khidr alayhi salam. He takes, like an instrument, like an axe kind of thing, and he goes down where the hull of the boat is, of the ship, and he makes a hole in it. Now what's going to happen when you make a hole in the hull? So in one narration it says Musa alayhi salam took off his robe and he started stuffing it to stop the water. Now look at the response of Musa alayhi salam. What does he say? He said, have you made a hole in it in order to drown these people of the boat? Now, do you see what he said? To drown the people of this boat. Is he on the boat himself? Is Khidr alayhi salam on the boat? Yes. He doesn't say drown us. So as a messenger, his concern is about these people, that they are poor people. They are generous people. They let us on their boat. They didn't charge us any money, and this is what he's doing. So you are doing this and you want to drown them? Khidr alayhi salam says, and then he says that this is imra, this is a serious matter what you've done. So he says, Alam aqul innaka lan tastati'a sabra? Did I not say that you would not be able to have patience with me? Musa alayhi salam says, immediately he says, don't take me to task and hold me accountable because I forgot. Same forgetfulness, okay? Except here, he is called to task for forgetfulness because he is a messenger as opposed to Yusha bin Nun when he forgot, okay? So Khidr alayhi salam is teaching him and he says, you forgot? He says, I forgot, and then he says, and don't be so hard on me. He's asking for leniency. Don't be hard on me and make my this affair of mine to seek knowledge more difficulty. Okay, so he's let go. So then the two of them get off the ship, and as they're walking along the beach, somewhere along there, they see a young kids playing, and he goes to one of the kids and essentially breaks his neck and kills him. Musa alayhi salam sees this and he is completely shocked. So what does he say? أَقَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيَةً بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ. So now he just doesn't say that you made a hole. He said, you killed a nafs, a soul? And then he says, Zakiyatum, a pure soul, young, innocent. بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ, means it wasn't in retribution, eye for an eye or life for a life. And then he says, this is nukra, means this is horrible, horrific, this is evil what you have done. Okay? Now look at it from the perspective of what's happening, what Musa alayhi salam is saying. Okay? So, this time when he says that, the reprimand, because now Musa alayhi salam was even more aggressive in objecting to what he had done. So now the response is, last time we forget, is even more. So this is the only place where he says, Alam aqul laka innaka. Did I not say to you? So this is added here. Laka innaka, that you will not. Did I not make it clear to you? So he's even reprimanded more, that you will not be able to have patience with. Musa alayhi salam says. Now Musa alayhi salam sets his own condition. He says, just to make it, he's trying to find a reason for him to come. He said, if after this I ever question you again, then you don't have to accompany me, because now I am run out of excuses and you are free. Okay. And so the two went on and they traveled for a while and they came to a qarya. Qarya is like a small town, like a village. Now they've traveled all this time. What do you think they are going to be? There's no fish. Hungry and thirsty. So now they come to the town people, Ahlaha, and they said, can you give us some food? Obviously, they didn't have money. Remember that also. This is a messenger of Allah and a special person, Nabi of Allah. Because they expected anybody in a town, because this is the hospitality, that's the right of the traveler in Islam. First day a guest comes, special treatment, 2 more days, and the 3 days is the fard, is an obligation on the host. Some of the narrations, they went from house to house and everybody refused. Then as they're walking, they find a wall that's on the verge of collapse. And yuridu means is making irada. Wall, of course, this is metaphorical because the wall doesn't have irada, but means it's almost at the verge of that's about to just collapse. So they've been rejected by everybody. They're fatigued and tired, hungry and thirsty. Now, Khidr alayhi salam puts the wall up and fixes it. And some narration says that his fixing was that he did a masa of the wall and it stood up and fixed that. Maybe a karama, or he actually did all of that. So he did something good. But Musa alayhi salam couldn't understand that this is how we've been treated. They're so stingy people, terrible people. So Musa alayhi salam says, if you wished, you could have asked for a payment. Means with that money we might have gotten food, or you could have asked payment in terms of food, that I've done this, give us some food instead. So Khidr alayhi salam says, هَذَا فِرَاقُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. This is our parting. Okay? This is the parting of our ways between you and me. And now I will explain to you the real meaning, the interpretation of all those events which la tastati'a maya sabra, that you were not able to have the patience of. So in the first incident, when we look from the eyes of Musa alayhi salam, or look with our eyes, okay, as we said, Musa alayhi salam saw the generosity of these relatively poor people who had this ship, and they were generous, and they gave them a free ride, and that we harmed them. So externally, you retaliate with something bad that goes against the Sharia. You're causing apparent harm in exchange for somebody good that was done to you. And he sees, when you see something wrong being done, what should you do? What does the hadith say? Stop it with your hand or with your tongue, or at least feel. So Musa alayhi salam tried to stop, So in that case, he pleaded forgetfulness and apologized on that basis. Okay. In the second incident, as we said, there was a greater violation of the Sharia. He actually killed somebody. And then he went into the details. You took a life, a pure innocent life. It was not in retaliation, and he called it a horrible nukra, pure evil. And therefore, the retribution from Khidr alayhi salam was also stronger. Didn't I tell you? So now, as we said, Musa alayhi salam set that condition himself, 3 strikes and I'm out. Okay. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "May Allah have mercy on my brother Musa." He became shy and said this. If he had remained quietly with that companion without making this condition, he would have seen many more amazing things. More amazing things. Okay. So now comes the explanation of these events. As he said, now let me tell you what this was all about. So this is where all that knowledge that Musa alayhi salam came to learn is being revealed. Okay. He starts with the boat. He says, أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحمة وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. So he said, أما السفينة, as for the ship, he said, it belongs to كانت لمساكين, that these were poor people, masakin. And masakin, by this we learn that you can be poor and needy even though you own something. I mean, to own a ship, it was a partnership. Some said there were 10 brothers who had owned it, but they can still be needy as opposed to a faqir who owns nothing. Okay, that's why masakin also qualify for zakat. Okay, they may have things, but they are needy. Okay, so they were needy. He says, and they worked. Ya'maluna fil bahr. They worked on the ocean. What is work on the ocean? Fishing, transporting people, taking things to make a living. And he said, now listen to this. Wa aradtu, I desired to slightly damage it, because I knew from knowledge that Allah had given me that behind them, what was coming, there was a tyrant king who was taking by force every seaworthy ship that he could find. He was probably building his navy. And being a tyrant, wherever he found a sound ship, he would grab it. You can't do it. So I damaged the ship so that when the king and his army come, they say, oh, this is a damaged ship, we don't need it. So that way he saved the ship. Then he says, and as for the young man, his parents were true believers. Mu'min. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say Muslim. Mu'min. And based on the revealed knowledge, he said, we, he used that pronoun, we feared that he should cause them much grief when he grows up by his transgression and even disbelief and his wickedness. And so we desired that their Lord grant them, instead of him, another son of greater purity of heart and closer in loving tenderness and mercy towards the parents. In other words, he wanted the son swapped for somebody who was going to be swapped for somebody who would be nobler in his heart, gentler with them. And this knowledge was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this man, this young boy, he looks innocent. They all look innocent when they're first born. And then they become the greatest of tyrants, you know. If you look in history, at some point, somebody, mother and others, oh, how cute a baby, right?
Then they become teenagers.
Yeah. And it grows from there. So this is the story of that. And as for the wall, it belonged to 2 orphan boys living in the city. Here he uses the word Medina. We'll talk about that instead of the little village. Living in the city. And beneath that wall was buried a hidden treasure which belonged to them. It must have been put there by their father, because they were yatim, the father had died. Their father had been a righteous man, Saleh. Okay? So now look, now this is something good is happening. So your Lord, he's telling Musa alayhi salam, your Lord intended that when they come of age, when they become old enough, they will dig up their treasure by your Lord's grace and mercy to them. And then he says, final, which tells us that he was a Nabi, moreover, I did not do any of this on my own authority. Okay? And he said, this is the real meaning of all those events which you were unable to bear with patience. So Khidr alayhi salam ultimately explains the interpretation of his actions. We're going to take some extra time, so I hope you will have patience with me, because we want to finish this story. Inshallah. Innaka tastatiya ma'ya sabra. Not la. Interpretation means to connect the end result with and the meaning, consequence of what action was done. So, as he said, that the ship, it belonged to some poor people, meaning weak people who could not defend themselves from oppression from this tyrant. And he called them poor because of their lowliness and weakness and masakin. And therefore, Al-Khidr chose the lesser of two harms. In our Sharia, when there are two harms, you're supposed to, two negative things, you choose the lesser of the two. As they say, lesser of the two evil. So he harmed the boat, but he chose to do the lesser harm as opposed to the greater harm. Greater harm would be the ship would be taken from them by force, and perhaps they'd be taken as slaves or even killed. So the fear of the seizure of the ship by the tyrant king was greater, and therefore he decided to do that. And another lesson from that is that the poor people had shown their generosity even though they were poor. How did they show their generosity? Free. And maybe it was that generosity which led to the protection of the ship, because they were generous with it. So Allah sent this slave of his to protect them. Okay, so if you want to preserve anything that you have, use it, give it for the pleasure of Allah. That's what preserves it. Protect, and including your children, if you want to preserve and protect them, let them serve Allah's deen. The second story, that in Allah's knowledge, that boy was destined to be a disbeliever when he grew up. From the day he was created, Allah knew that later on he would go and do things that ultimately he would go into kufr. Now what happens to parents? Sometimes the parents overlook out of their love for their children, and they would overlook, or they may even be influenced to make excuses for him, and it would lower them in their status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were mu'min. Allah didn't want that to come down because of their love, their attachment to their children. Okay? And how many times we do things to displease Allah just to please our children. Just remember that. Okay? So, it was possible that they would have moved away from Allah and lowered their ranks because of this disbelief. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them by taking him. Now, just imagine what the parents, from the parents' viewpoint, probably the most difficult, greatest loss for anyone is to lose a child. Okay, is to lose a child. So they have this innocent appearing young boy, and he died. And they don't know all of this behind it. And how many in our community have lost young kids? Even in West Springfield a few Ramadans ago, one kid ran across and the car came and killed him. And what a great thing. And by Allah's grace, that mother was a rock of patience. When he went for condolence, she said, Amana of Allah, Allah took him. All the people in condolence, there are many sisters sitting there crying, she was consoling them. This is the mother. Okay, if some of you might know her. Yes. So, for them it was a great loss. Now he says, and Allah would replace, and Allah gave them another child. And some of the narrations say that they had a daughter. And that daughter married one of the prophets of the Bani Israel, and from her progeny 70 prophets came. Okay. So an innocent child that was killed senselessly in his childhood, because the parents would never know what was behind it. But when they bear it with patience, then Allah elevates the standards even more. One woman came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, "Ya Rasulullah, I have lost 3 children in my life." He said, 3? She said, yes. He says, Jannah is guaranteed for you. In fact, there's a hadith that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala questions the angel of death, he sends him to take somebody's child, and comes back, "What did you find my slave doing?" Said, "Ya Allah, your slave said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. What Allah has given, bestowed, he has taken, and he was patient." Allah says to the angel, "You be my witness that I have granted him Jannah." Okay, or her Jannah. And these children would be at the gates of Jannah to receive their parents, some of them. The third one, Allah mentions that what was the reason for protection of these orphans' wealth and the risk? Because their father, Abuhuma Salih, was righteous. And that tells us that if you have, as a father, if you're righteous, this is a cause of protection of your children. Their risks, their blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's also important to know that the townspeople were extremely stingy. If those little orphans, if that wall had fallen and somebody found the treasure, what would they have done with the treasure, the town people? They would have taken it all. He said, "Orphans, go." And just imagine the mother, because she's not mentioned, she was probably alive because they were. She must have been making a lot of the, "Ya Allah, who's going to support my orphan children? And where is this?" And she may have been thinking, when will the help come? And the wisdom of Allah is, He doesn't want to give you now, because it will all be taken from you. When they need it, it will come. When they're grown up, strong enough, they will find the treasure. This is from the Rahman. So Allah will answer the dua of the mother, but at its right time. We have to know that duas would be answered where Allah's knowledge of what is best for you. Just remember, whatever He decides is always best for you, regardless of how we see it. So it would be delivered to them safely. So in conclusion, the consequence of damaging the ship was that it was safe from the enemy hands. The result of killing the boy was that his parents were safe from his evil and they were granted someone better. And the result of repairing the wall was that the orphans were able to take their treasure when they needed it, when they were strong enough to protect it. And again, as he said, he did not do it on his own accord. And that there was a hidden wisdom and a blessed outcome for all of these. And this is from the realm of the secrets of the unseen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, and He only imparts to someone.